Yo, what's up, guys? It's the Insane Game Freak here. I was gonna put this on the vlog channel, but literally, I'm very conflicted. I have spent like the last, I want to say, 5 to 12 hours, kind of directly and indirectly, kind of looking over net neutrality stuff because the major decision was made today, and it turned out to be a repeal. They repealed the net neutrality, which means that we're back to a free war zone, so to speak. And I kind of want to give a different perspective on it because I know a lot of people are like, we need net neutrality. Net neutrality needs to stay. Even though the reality is that net neutrality as it is currently isn't necessarily as neutral as it should be. And I think people are not, because I'm not here to say that one side is better than the other, which is already a big departure than what most people tell you, because most people just say, how are you against net neutrality? Well, I'm not against net neutrality. I'm just a little bit more skeptical about certain aspects of how net neutrality is going and the particular companies in question who are for and against it. For example, we currently know that Google and Netflix and it seems like a good string of states are all like, we're suing you, which was something to be expected. I mean, that was going to happen if it got repealed because they're in the interest of protecting their investment. And the reason why I bring that up is because when you look at the net neutrality situation, which the general idea of net neutrality is that all data is shared equally. There is no blocking. There is no throttling. There is no like what's the word? Special privileges to certain websites. That's the general idea of net neutrality. Having that in place means that companies can't do whatever the fuck they want and block and make you pay extra for certain access to certain parts of sites or segment sites up into like little packages, like that little image that's been floating around where, oh, it's $5 for your email package or like another $10 for your gaming package. And people are concerned that since you're moving them from being a Title II, a telecommunications, to back to a Title I, which is what they were up until 2015. I think Obama passed that law in 2015, and then they became a Title II, which means they could be regulated by the FCC. The way it worked before was that the FCC and the FTC, it was like the FCC was watching, but it was more of like a light touch approach. Like they didn't just have their hands in there. It was more of like, we see you, watch your shit. And then like the FTC would only really come in, like you really FTC until after something had happened. Like, oh wow, AT&T had to pay $80 million because of an FTC report turned out to be true and they got fined. Like that's how the FTC. So the FTC was like if some shady shit was going on, it was investigated, and if it was proven, you heard about it, and it was like, oh. And the FCC was kind of like, we're watching it, but we're not gonna just stick our hands in it. And it's kind of funny considering how everyone's been feeling about our current government this year, or just in general for some people, that they would prefer the government to have their hands in the internet. Because right now, what's actually happening is that the FCC, from 2015 up until at least this year, FCC has had direct, watchful eye and technical control over the internet service providers, or they are the ISPs. And it was like, well, technically there's a lot of different things they could have been doing that they're not doing. And I think the general idea of repealing is like, well, we're not even doing as much as we could be doing. So what's the point of us being over control? At this point, it's just more of the looming fear of, we can change a bunch of shit. So you better keep your shit straight. Like, we rather have the watchful big brother. Like, I mean, that's literally what it is. So I get the fear of net neutrality and of losing it, because it becomes a situation where, well, then Comcast can do whatever the fuck it wants. It could just dictate everything. But what's stopping the FCC from making Comcast do whatever the fuck the FCC wants? Well, there's not. it's a catch-22 because you're going to lose both ways. The idea is just that the way things have been since 2015 and to now is quote-unquote better than the way it was from, what was it, 1996 to like to 2015 or 2014. And I'm very conflicted because I don't think either. And see, here's the thing: I like net neutrality as the idea, but the problem is right now it doesn't feel like it's as neutral as it needs to be. If it's neutral, why is the FCC directly in control of what the ISPs do? Because we're literally playing the same game. We're either we go back to the way it was before, where the FCC is just kind of watching, but technically the ISPs can do whatever the fuck they want, and we're just gonna have to trust them to not fuck up or to dig their hands into a pot they shouldn't. Or we go to where we're at currently, where we just hope to God the FCC doesn't want to be a bunch of dicks and make the ISPs do some shit that we don't want to deal with, because that can easily happen in its own right. It hasn't, because they've had a light touch approach, but really it's becoming, do I trust Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, or do I just trust the FCC? And considering the shit that people have thrown at the FCC over the years, I'm surprised that people literally said, well, yeah, I think I'll trust the FCC over Comcast, Verizon, AT&T. Like I said, and see, the other thing is that, and some of you would ask, well, what's the other benefit of not having net neutrality? Well, there are certain innovations that, because of net neutrality saying, oh, all data has to go to everyone equally, there, and on top of that, the FCC unfortunately has the system is now that they have to that every ISP has to kind of file these documents that take a long time and cost a lot of money and cost even more money because of the manpower and extra hours that some people have to work to file these documents to give the FCC constant updates of how many people they're reaching, the amount of money they're using. This it's literally just like a general checkup that they have to do that just costs too damn much, which takes away from their financial resources, especially for these smaller businesses. Now, from what I understand, not every small business has been quote unquote hampered by it, but it is a bunch of money that you shouldn't have to be spending on basic shit like that. On top of the fact that because you have this whole little agreement that everyone has to share data equally, for companies just starting out and trying to expand, that means they have to already compete on this high level tier just getting out the gate, which then creates a situation of, well, I can't really do that, and no one's going to switch over to me knowing that I can't really compete. Now, granted, like I said, it does create a situation where not having it allows companies to just say, oh, if you don't want to see CNN, if I don't want you to see CNN, I'm gonna throttle it. And really, it's just a trust thing at this point. Do I trust this? And for me personally, I feel like I don't remember the internet situation really being bad up until 2014. I don't think it was, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think the situation was that bad, all things considered. Because, think about it. Obama became president in, 2008, right? It means that net neutrality didn't come into effect until, the last 2 years. And it wasn't like companies were running wild. Now, granted, there were some cases. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. There were a few cases, and if I can find, a good list of them, I'll put those in the description, of companies get a little bit too reckless, like the whole Comcast and Netflix thing. But I find it interesting that companies like Google and Facebook and Netflix don't want or totally for net neutrality. Well, part of the thing about net neutrality is that because you had to deliver all these things equally, all these sites to your customers equally, but here's the thing, and some people have already read these reports, Netflix currently, at least I don't know if it's in the world or just the US, currently takes up a third of bandwidth, of the internet period. And if you add on YouTube, that's another 6, which potentially means that half of the internet's bandwidth on a daily basis is being used by just 2 services. And it's well, here's the situation. Either Comcast pays to upgrade their infrastructure, which costs them a whole bunch of more money, so they can stream Netflix more consistently, or Netflix pays. Well, under net neutrality, Netflix isn't under any obligation to upgrade their shit unless they just want to. But Comcast has to, because they're under regulation that they have to upgrade their stuff. And some of you would say, well, why wouldn't you want that anyway? Well, that's true, but it seems kind of fucked up that Comcast's entire infrastructure has to be upgraded for the sake of one streaming app versus Netflix upgrading their shit. Because Netflix isn't under any obligation to do so. And hey, it's like, or what it boils down to is that Netflix will get better streaming to their customers easily because Comcast has to do it. So pretty much Comcast is footing the bill, just in this example, is footing the bill, and Netflix benefits completely from it. I think and from what I heard recently, didn't Netflix just go up on its pricing? Well, part of that is due to this. It's like, well, you need to upgrade your shit. Somebody's going to have to foot the bill for it. So either Comcast pays for it, Netflix pays for it, they both pay for it, or you, the consumer, pay for it. Somebody's got to fucking pay for the upgrades to keep a certain level of quality up. Because eventually what could potentially happen with the whole throttling of certain networks is that some people just might say, fuck Netflix. Because Netflix is just too goddamn expensive to keep as a service. And maybe certain companies just don't have the money for the upgrades. Or it's just way too much for not that much of a return. I mean, right now, it's like everyone has to have Netflix. So upgrading your shit just for the sake of Netflix isn't like it's going to bring in a bunch of new customers. If anything, you're just trying to appease the ones you have. And like I said, it's weird. It's hard because I don't think either one side is right. I just don't like that that everyone's like this save net neutrality, but no one's really questioning why certain companies, especially ones that I think we've learned in the past, are known for censoring and pushing certain content over others. The site I'm putting this out on, it's a little concerning that, the site that even Twitter will go around censoring certain people if you're saying certain things. I think Facebook does the same thing. Facebook pushes certain agendas. It's like, and I believe if I read some of the regulations in this new proposal right, I think companies are still required to be transparent with their users about what they are and aren't doing. Because a lot of these things that came to light over these past few years with certain companies and the shit that they were doing became a huge thing, and a lot of people changed their minds or repealed what they were doing because it got out to the public, and the public made a big stink about it. Has anyone noticed that like cell phone plans have gotten easier over the last, have gotten a lot more open and a lot more competitive, and I think the users in general have all benefited because of that? Well, part of it is because it's a free open market where it's the Wild West and you do whatever the fuck you want. Now, obviously, like I said, there's trust there. But at the same time, it's like, well, if I don't want to lose to my competitor, it's not like I'm just going to take away Hulu from you, because that's taking, even though Hulu isn't like my streaming service, it is a streaming service. It's almost like if I think about it in concepts of games, like if I think about it in consoles, like just say PlayStation and Xbox, for example, just to relate this back to gaming. Yeah, it does me better to push Gears of War and Halo because it's an Xbox console. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to take Soul Calibur 6 as a multiplat just because I won't make the most money from it. There's no real benefit of doing that. It's like, well, I want to push my own fighter. I want to push Killer Instinct. Yeah, but not having it gives your opponent more ammo to push their own narrative with. And that it's kind of the same concept here. It's like, yeah, I could just throttle Hulu because I want you to use Netflix. But there are people who still watch Hulu. There's no point in doing that. That's why, and I think that's why it's more, the current repeal for net neutrality is more for like, well, I think we can trust them at this point. Because the ISPs know they can easily go right back to the FCC controlling things. And the ISPs don't want to do that. So I guess the hope here is that the ISPs will play nice because they know what would happen if they didn't play nice. On top of the FTC finding them again and the FCC controlling them tightly again, because if I'll put it this way, if it's one of those things where the FCC has to come right back into control, seeing whether or not this actually sticks because of all the suing that's about to go on. This could, if it does stick and we're back into the Wild West, and I think ISPs get labeled under Title Ones instead of Title Twos, and then they have to come right back and pull you back in the Title Twos, things potentially got worse. And for me, the way I look at it is this: I'm more willing to kind of deal with the shit of the ISP than the potential bullshit of dealing with the government. Remember how everyone got super paranoid about the government and didn't trust the government, but all of a sudden now we're cool with the government, like, being that heavily controlled. Now, granted, a lot of the argument would be is that, well, it's been 2 years and they haven't really done anything. What's the big idea? Well, certain innovations can't happen. We can't try new business models when you have this nasty ass ceiling that everybody has to hit if you're getting into the market of becoming an ISP, an internet service provider. But if you take that shit away, people are more willing to take those risks. And although they may curve and become these fucking ridiculous waves and shit, it could potentially become the next innovation. And granted, it's not like that can't still happen under the current net neutrality, but it's one of those things where I'm very mixed on how I feel. Because realistically, if they keep it the way it is, things will just stay the same. And I don't know about you, but I didn't necessarily care about the fuckery that was going on over, at least for the last few years, especially with companies like Comcast, where they started throttling your IP and shit. I mean, they started adding data caps and shit, and we were like, no, we don't want that. I don't know. That's why I say I'm not really on a side here. I'm more, and some of you would say, well, you're pushing the whole killing net neutrality more than saving it. And the only reason why I'm doing that is because almost every video, there's a bunch, the mass majority of videos on net neutrality are more focusing on saving it. So I'm trying to present a devil's advocate approach to this, but realistically, they both have their problems because we're still putting our fate into one of these sides' hands. If I want my internet, I'm either hoping to God that Comcast chills the fuck out and it's fine, or I'm hoping to God that the FCC chills the fuck out and it's fine. And I find it kind of ironic that the FCC is literally fighting to have less control over the internet. Because, I mean, that's what it is. To be fair, that's exactly what's happening. The FCC is asking for less control of the internet, and the vast majority of people, it seems like so far, want the exact opposite. I don't think I've ever heard, I think this is like one of the few times I've ever been like, wow, people actually want the government to intervene more. That is rare. But please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. It's just something I've been thinking about. Thanks for watching. Life's a game. Play to win. And I will catch you guys later. Peace. Oh.